Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. GMT, every day of the week, where we go live to discuss everything to do with the NFT market, the crypto market, and whatever coins are absolutely sending. At the moment, we are delighted to say that the numbers are going up at the moment, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more, maybe even talk about what else could be going up in the immediate future. For the moment, though, I'm your host, B-Check. I'm joined by my legendary co-host, Legendary, and Sammy. We're going to get to a moment, but just a reminder, folks, that nothing that we say here is financial advice. We do not know anything for sure. Please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, how are you doing this Tuesday, the 27th of February?
GM, unsurprisingly, I'm doing absolutely fantastic. Love the green in the market. Apart from the pump, I think it's been a pretty exciting day, at least for my bags. Pixelmon sale happened. They did 6 million as a total raise, sold out in 8 minutes, essentially. People proceeded to dump their Pixelmon. I was able to buy the dip. Then Julio, the Pixelmon CEO, announced that everyone who basically just traded in and out to get into the pre-sale will get the pre-sale allocation revoked and refunded. So whoever bought in to do pre-sale and sold out is essentially at a loss too. That was quite entertaining, quite hilarious to see, but allowed me to get a cheaper entry point. And again, I feel like I'm running out of liquidity. I also scooped up my first imaginary one, deposited a bit more into Blast, and now I'm like, I need more liquidity. Blast is coming. Wassies are pumping and receiving airdrop after airdrop, and I'm like, damn, it's too much going on, and that's not even getting into the massive BTC pump, obviously.
Interesting. Yes, I definitely feel your pain there. I think we will do a little bit of discussion about liquidity and maybe thinking about proportions. Someone messaged me yesterday because my portal coin allocation, just asked me like, oh, how are you feeling? And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm feeling quite good. However, the main thing that I was actually doing at the time, and then we started a conversation on this, was like sorting out my proportions, like thinking about where actually is the money at the moment, because sometimes you can get confused as to your proportions as the value of things change, and just figuring out like, okay, this amount is in Blast, this amount is in Eigenlayer, this amount is wherever. So I think it might be an interesting conversation, and I actually learned a few things about my own portfolio yesterday, which I necessarily wasn't on top of, and then I fixed a couple of things. So maybe we could have a little chat about that when we talk about Blast, given how much we think that is an interesting opportunity. Sammy, how are you feeling? What's up? How's your Tuesday going? How are you feeling about the market at the moment?
Yeah, it's good. Feeling severe FOMO. Just not sure where to allocate that capital. I think I'm allocated in various positions, but then there's always that imposter syndrome. Have you allocated it in the right spot to maximize the ROI? And is there other opportunities that need to be looked into? I did discover some tools actually. So like the bank, I think, is a pretty good tool, and there's some other tools. I've discovered some staked tokens, gaming tokens from back in 2021 that have accrued some value. So
okay,
found some liquidity there. But yeah, there's definitely some tools out there that similar to the point on the portfolio allocation. There's some stuff that's been hidden in wallets that I'm kind of discovering that I kind of written off back in the day, but seems to have come back. So it's quite interesting.
Interesting. That's nice. So you're saying that some old gaming tokens are actually up in value from where you bought them when in the previous cycle?
I don't know if they're up or down, but
They're higher than what they were, but you don't know when you bought them.
There's a reasonable amount enough for me to realize and be like, oh, okay, that's a nice little surprise. So I think it's Cypher. I think they've got like a game coming up. I bought this back in 2021, staked it, and then just left it, and yeah, just wrote it off.
Okay. Well, it's nice to discover money, that's for sure. Something from my perspective, and we were talking about this a little bit before the show started, and we're going to get into the headlines just after this, but again, we're getting to that point where things are really getting on top of us. I think like there's so much stuff going on, not necessarily only in the NFT market. Like there's just significant opportunity in terms of allocating capital? That seems to be the big question at the moment. So I think that's why we're going to spend a bit of time on that at the moment. It's not necessarily which NFT is pumping, which bag do you buy in that respect. It's just where to allocate, which points are worth the most. How do we split them between different places? So it'll be interesting to hear our thoughts on that a little bit. And then on top of that, from the kind of deal making side of things, finding that things are going quickly. And the market is hot, like super hot right now. If you think that you're going to get in at a particular valuation and you go to Paris for a few days, like maybe you're coming back and you're not getting in at that same valuation because the round is full. So definitely very conscious that good stuff is going quickly. Again, it feeds into this point me and Legendary have been making for a long time. This space is not short of capital. Capital is not the issue. If you think that it's going to be difficult for people to raise 5-10 million right now for something good, like it's just not a problem. The issue is more like who you are, who you know, and how quickly you're able to respond to the request for raising capital. Legendary, do you think that's fair? How have you been feeling the last couple of days as someone who's actually raising capital for certain people, but as also someone who's allocating?
Money is not the issue. You're absolutely right. It's the attention, getting the attention. That is the finite thing, because it's just a very limited number of people on the timeline who manage to attract attention. And that is rather the challenge. To me personally, like I struggle a bit with the tension that I feel between wanting to get good exposure to Blast as soon as possible in terms of investing in protocols, depositing capital, etc., but also now continuing on our conversation from yesterday, seeing that economic activity that we spoke about on BTC starting to take off faster and faster, wanting to get exposure there as well too, and ideally, as you said, both at the same time. And this is really the challenge because some of the rounds and some of the opportunities are filling up so fast that it's basically that you can't postpone things to tomorrow, essentially.
Yeah, I definitely empathize with that. Just quickly repeat for me, Legendary. You said Blast is your one thing. The second one being
Bitcoin.
Yeah. The orange coin is king at the moment. The God chain. I don't know if anyone else has been calling it the God chain. That's what I think I started calling it yesterday. I kind of like that. Kind of like it. Need some more exposure to it in whatever way possible. I'm just trying to think of how to do it. We're going to get into all the headlines in just a moment, talking about the God chain, the God coin, because everything seems to be ripping with Bitcoin leading the way. So let's do that now, actually. Let's get straight into the headlines to bring you up to speed with everything that's happening in the NFT market in the last 24 hours, as well as in crypto too. As always, this is in the snapshot, which is pinned up top. If you do find that it brings you some value, please do give it a like. So now we'll go through it. If you're watching on screen, you can see the snapshot. If you're just listening in, I will read some of the key details. Let's do it. First, crypto is absolutely ripping. Bitcoin was up 11% at 56.6K. When I was redrafting the snapshot, which I do every morning, I can see the numbers obviously that I drafted yesterday. It was at 51 yesterday. Absolutely crazy moves, probably backed by some of these outrageous inflows from the ETFs. Eric Balkunas reported that the new 9 Bitcoin ETFs have broken all-time volume record today, which was yesterday, with $2.4 billion, just barely beating day one, but about to double their recent daily average. The IBIT went wild, accounting for $1.3 billion of it, breaking its record by about 30%. So crazy inflows coming in. So Bitcoin was up about 11%, I think it was. ETH passes 3.2K, up 5%. Solana up 7% to $111 as well. And the other headline for me was Portalcoin and Blast launching on Thursday, the 29th of February, as Blast reaches $2 billion TVL. Portalcoin turning up on CoinMarketCap at $5 now. Want to discuss where that number's come from, given that it was been trading around $3 on Whales Market. So if people are a bit confused about that, hopefully we can get some answers from Sammy and Legendary in just a moment. Getting into some notable sales, we had a NodeMonk Gold selling for 0.77 ETH, That's a lot of dollars. CryptoPunk VR selling for 75 ETH, and Cyberkong's Genesis again. We saw one selling yesterday for 19, I believe. Another one sold today for 21 ETH. Sammy likes that collection a lot. In terms of the floor prices, we've got CryptoPunks at 55.9, Bored Apes at 22.5, Mutants at 4, DGods at 2.9, Captains at 5.1, Azuki's at 5.8, Penguins at 19.3, Mad Lads at 187 Sol, and the Nouns winning bid was at 5.9 ETH. Legendary, those are the headlines. Those are the key numbers. Before we get into a discussion on the headlines, is there anything catching your eye in terms of the numbers being shared?
There's actually another number. I mentioned it in the intro of the show. WASIs are up 86% on the day. They are up 180% over the last 7 days. Massive driver for them. Obviously, Loomstart being the one of the judges in the blast competition, and they are getting more and more exposure to airdrops. So far, the airdrops announced are Particle, Wormhole, Juice Finance. Pike teased with the WASI. Apparently, there's a meme coin coming their way as well. So, just a lot of airdrop activity, just absolutely sending that collection.
That is an excellent point. Do you know, to any extent, where we are in terms of those snapshots being taken? Do we know that they're going to get them and the snapshots have already been taken? Or is that something which is kind of undecided at the moment? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know anything about definite snapshots yet. To be honest, I've seen the airdrop announcements or the teasing posts, but I don't know if snapshots have happened yet. But that's something that I'm trying to figure out, because typically I don't want to buy into a massive pump like that. But
it's hard, isn't it?
It's hard to resist at this point, to be honest. It's hard to resist.
Okay, we're looking at the WASI chart, not the WASI chart, the WASI collection on Mintify. Let's see where we are. In the last 7 days, we are up 183%. The floor's now at 2.23 ETH. I think I saw a tweet recommending them at about 0.7 ETH only a week ago. So that, I guess that makes complete sense. Yeah, activity. So yeah, it was about 0.75. Oh, it feels so terrible to have to buy this at 2.2, right? If you are going to need to do that. Sammy, any thoughts on this? Can you bring yourself to buy something like this after such an significant pump? So I guess 2.23, what's that in dollars? That's around maybe 7 to 8K at the moment.
7K, a bit more than 7K.
Yeah, like, are you able to look at that and say, if this gets all of the airdrops on blast, 7K is undervalued, even though it's just gone up almost 200%?
I mean, given the fact that it gets all those airdrop, well, if it's confirmed and the snapshot hasn't been taken, it could still be worth it. But if the snapshot has been taken and you buy the pump, that could be a pretty savage loss. So, yeah, I mean, I like the WASIs, and there's a lot of prominent people that have them. So just holding it as an like a PFP NFT as well, like, it has value. But I remember these trading at like 0.4, 0.5, and it just feels wrong to pay sort of 4 or 5x that. So yeah, I think for me, I'd wait for a pullback, but I don't know, in this market, you don't even know whether there is going to be a pullback. That's the issue.
Yeah, for me, I think one of the hardest things to do when you trade is to stop thinking about what price it was and just think, like, what price is it now? Is it overvalued or is it undervalued? And I don't know if I would necessarily buy into this. I think you raised the exact correct question, which was, have the snapshots been taken? Which snapshots are they going to be a part of? Are they going to get allocations for basically every single thing on Blast? If so, then I would be tempted to say, not saying this definitively, tempted to say that around 7K could be undervalued. Like, it could be, depending on all of those things, and it could not matter that it's gone up 200%, but you'd need to check all of those things first. That's one of the great things about this market, like the information asymmetry. The market can be so inefficient. Because is anyone actually going to go and do that research immediately? Legendary, I think you want to come in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Mooncat did a massive bull post on WASIs as well, specifying that the meme coin they're getting is Pump, real Pump It coin. Also adding a potential thruster airdrop coming for them as well. And he even went that far saying that the fact that Loom is deep into the space, especially with Blast as well, I expect Blast to bring a lot of value to WASIs through airdrops. Once the big projects do it, so will the smaller ones. Will everyone just airdrop to WASIs? Then 2.5 ETH for WASI is a steal. I wish I would have bought Pudgies at 2.5 ETH. In hindsight, anything is easy.
Yeah, that's a interesting comparison. I mean, I've seen a couple of tweets where Pudgies and Wassies are like now being paired together. Obviously, everyone wants to pair themselves with Pudgies, right? Everyone's going to want to try to do that. And so every single collection will try to share a screenshot of those two names together just so it gets into people's heads. But let's see. Let's see with this, because I think it is worth checking out and getting on top of that information, because when you turn it into the dollar value, kind of like how I spoke about Node Monks a couple of days ago, 10K for a Node Monk was just too cheap. 7K for a Wasi, if it's going to get everything on Blast, maybe that's too cheap. And if you compare with other Ethereum NFTs that are like get in that 2 to 3 ETH bracket, let's see what else is in that 2 to 3 ETH bracket. Miladies are at 3. I mean, creeps have gone completely crazy at almost at 5 now. We'll come on to those in a moment.
Little Pudgy is a good comparison. Little Pudgy's at like what, 1.8, 1.9? I can't see it on the screen. Yeah, 1.9-ish. Yeah.
Little Pudgy's are 1.9.
That would be an interesting question. Little Pudgy's
2.8. That's a good
little
comparison.
Pudgies who also get airdrop exposure by extension of obviously the Pudgy ecosystem versus Wasis who are like the tier one in their own ecosystem. That'd be interesting to see 9 months down the line, which one would have given you more airdrop return.
I think that's a really good question, actually. What about this as something to ask? DGods at 2.8, Wasi, and also viral. So similar brackets, right? Pudgy's viral community, great community, going to get a lot of exposure, a lot of airdrops. And little ones at 1.8. Wasi's at 2.3, going to get a lot of stuff on Blast. DGods at 2.8, also viral, vocal community at 2.8. Already going to get Wormhole, probably going to get more things in future. Which one are you taking?
Not the DGod. Gotta be honest. Not the DGod. Sorry, Jack.
Not the DGod.
I'm leaving.
Okay, so it's an interesting question. Various things going on there. Something to think about.
I do think there's probably other collections though that haven't been announced yet that could be allocated airdrops. And I think for me, that would be where I would spend my attention. It's like, we know about Wassies, that's in the public domain. But there's going to be other collections that potentially have that network behind it that could potentially leverage or make those deals behind the scenes. And those haven't been announced. So that to me is like where I would spend my time trying to find that information symmetry.
Yeah, good point. Okay, interesting first discussion. Before we get into the headlines, actually, let's just get into the headlines. Are we going to start with the news about Bitcoin, about crypto? Everything's completely ripping at the moment. I'm going to share the screen of the charts. Legendary, we already touched on how the Bitcoin inflows were really going pretty crazy. So we have Bitcoin up almost 12% on the day to 56.8K. Like, what are you thinking here? I'm just going to find a few more other Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the volume with 2-point-something billion and not the trading volume. If you look at the net inflows yesterday, we saw 520 mil. Compare that to the day before, that was at 220 mil. The day before that, so the 22nd of Feb, 250. Actually, the 21st of Feb had net outflows of 35 mil. And Now, again, 520 mil of net inflows yesterday is absolutely insane.
What do you think about this in the context of the halvening? I think the way some people have been framing this, would be interested to hear your thoughts in terms of the framing, is that the amount of Bitcoin being bought by the ETFs versus the amount being produced by miners each day. Like, what do you think about looking at that kind of that ratio? Do you think that's an interesting ratio to look at? What are your thoughts on that, Legendary?
Obviously, it's an interesting ratio to look at. It's also an interesting ratio to see that now we're buying more than 10 times more BTC than we're mining daily. Once the halving happens, and given that those inflows sustain, that discrepancy will be at 20x. So that will be interesting to watch. Obviously, we've seen corrections around the last halvings. Many people are making the point could be different this time because we have the ETFs as like a consistent source of inflow and buy pressure that we didn't have before. I think it's impossible to predict what's going to happen around the halving, what the market will do, and we could see like an all-time high very, very soon. We could see a correction around the halving. I think everything is in the cards, and I don't want to like lean out of the window to come up with some pseudo analysis of what the price will be, but just talking about the factors and talking about like the significance of those daily inflows, of the daily buy pressure for BTC, I think is a very interesting discussion to be had.
Yeah, I kind of like the ratio thing. I think it's an interesting one to look at. I'm going to try and find a few more statistics on it. Sammy, what was your thought on this tweet from Beanie? Just about thinking about Bitcoin more, saying that the most obvious opportunity this cycle is staring you right in the face is projects being built on Bitcoin. We're on the cusp of the launch of seamless DeFi and other protocols for Bitcoin. And that's where the liquidity and brand equity is strongest in crypto, not priced in. What do you think of that?
Yeah, we touched on the whole is Bitcoin the god chain, all this kind of stuff yesterday. I think I won't rehash a lot of that, but there is a lot of development that's happening. There is still friction there on Bitcoin. Like, I still find it a little more difficult than say ETH or other chains to buy NFTs and buy ordinals and things like that. I've got Sparrow wallets, Xverse wallets. I've got single ordinals on each because I'm scared about sending them and using the wrong wallet address. So I think the infrastructure can be dramatically improved. And I do think that once you have DEXs, I think they've got Liquidium and a few others on there, but something with a really nice UI that gets used, then all of a sudden you're going to have a lot more liquidity flow in, and probably institutions are going to be doing it as well. I know there's a lot of rounds happening at the moment with Bitcoin L2s or BVM and all this kind of stuff at the moment. So I think getting into those is super interesting because I think they probably aren't priced in yet. There's still a lot of risk with these new ventures. Will they actually deliver what they say on the tin? So there is that risk, and maybe the bigger institutions aren't necessarily going to invest in them until probably a later stage, with a little bit more security over, like, are they going to be around for long term and all this kind of stuff? Are they going to use those protocols now? Probably not, but maybe in 6 months' time, that they'll probably be more willing to because there's less risk. Sure.
Interesting stuff. I want to share another interesting number, which is coming from Fred Krueger, at .Krueger, who's one of my favorite Bitcoin bulls at the moment. He says 4 times as much money went into Bitcoin funds last week net than any other week in history. 4 times. Over the last 7 days, 60,000 Bitcoin went into funds. That's 3 billion USD in a week. The previous high was on the 25th of December, 2020. Bitcoin was at 26K and we hit 40K Bitcoin in a week. So 900 million inflows in a week. Legendary, I guess what this is suggesting, if you were to infer from what Krueger is saying, is that we are on the cusp. I mean, although Bitcoin's already had a little bit of a run, quite a significant run already. I'm reading this as him suggesting we're going on a bigger run to come. What do you think about this? What do you think of monitoring that, even that statistic, this idea of thinking about how much money is going in funds and comparing that with previous numbers going into funds?
So first of all, I think you are reading too much Fred Krueger content. If you say on a day where BTC has a 10% pump, you're saying BTC had a bit of a run. So that kind of puts your bullishness into perspective, because I think Kruger is calling for like multiple six-figure BTC prices all the time, right?
Basically.
Yeah, what's another 10%? To answer your question seriously, I think it's interesting to see what institutional money does, because institutional money has a different investment horizon and has a different approach of how they treat highly volatile asset classes. So typically they are the ones to not invest to see BTC pump 3K and then just dump it as a day trader, but they're also typically often institutions are the ones who, when things are correcting, to remove the asset class with the highest volatility first. So that's two things to keep in mind, but I definitely find it super interesting to follow institutional money, knowing that they have a more long-term investment horizon than probably most of the retail traders.
Yeah, I think that's probably the point that Kruger's been making as well over the last couple of weeks, is that this is just not the same. I think he described it as hot money, who has been investing over and over again in crypto in previous cycles. This is the more institutional trader, and I think he called them the accumulators, who are just going to buy some Bitcoin at whatever price it says it is. Like, we're going to allocate a certain amount to it. Whatever the price is in the ETF, that's the price they're going to buy it at. And they're not going to be checking next week, next month, next quarter, how that allocation is going to be doing. That's his argument, at least. So if you are subscribed to that argument and you subscribe to the idea that more people are inflowing into this because they want to take their allocation, then yes, you would come to the conclusion that we're going to go significantly higher from here. Let's go around the table a little bit. We've got some hands in the audience. I'm not exactly sure which order they went up, so we'll just take them in turn. Let's go from Funky to Oxy to Jack. Funky first. Welcome to the stage, my friend. What are your thoughts on the pretty aggressive run across crypto, but also with Bitcoin leading the way here?
Jim, I absolutely love it. I think it's a wonderful thing to wake up to see that kind of God candle from the God coin right at the start of the day. I'm looking at my marathon digital, Bitcoin miner options, just absolutely pumping. Got $20 calls for June and $35 calls for next year. Not financial advice and everything, but I think this is just going to continue. We're seeing Michael Saylor buying up more Bitcoin for MicroStrategy. I don't think this is going to slow down anytime soon. I think that ultimately we may see a new all-time high before we even get to the halving, because at this rate, it's just completely unsustainable. They can't. We get to the halving and it's 450 Bitcoin mined a day. And to, Legendary brought up the numbers. That's a 20x. What point will it become illiquid, where all these hodlers are just hanging on to their tokens, and it's just going to drive the price higher and higher and higher? So, I think this just bodes well for an interesting year. And again, I'm not a trader, but you look at that point of control, when you look at previous volumes past that 58K mark, it's blue sky. There's nothing there. Like, we have no idea what's going to come after that. So there's a lot of things that are, I think, just, many various things that are pushing us along. And I think it's only going to continue as we get deeper into the year.
Very good. Very good points. Thanks so much for that insight, Funky. Let's go to Oxy. Your hand is raised. Welcome to the stage, my friend. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin leading the way here?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's interesting, the concept of people just buying it and hanging on. I think that's very real, and I think as a result, there's going to be some sort of a floor price that kind of gets established, simply because they're going to hang on to it from now for the next 20, 30 years until retirement, and then there will be no outflows from those specific accounts. I'm curious to see what that kind of looks like from what's the age breakdown of the people buying into these ETFs. And then I guess second to that is there, it's inevitable, there's going to be a time where these inflows start slowing down. I'm curious, like, is that priced into where, the first week of the inflow is kind of decreasing in volume simply because the deployed money is kind of already out there and already bought into these places, and then I guess couple that with the halving, like what happens at that point when the inflow starts slowing down because the money that wants to get in has already gotten in, and they've got their bag, they've got their allocation. What happens to the price then? Is that price then, or is it all kind of speculation at this point? I don't know. I'm just a lot of questions, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are probably some reasonable questions to ask. I wonder if Funky would be able to come in on that. Funky, the question was, you've obviously got the halving coming in. I've got an instinctive thought on it, but I thought I'd give this to Funky. That you've got the halving coming in, which will create a bit of a supply shock for Bitcoin itself, but also maybe people will have made the allocations that they want to Bitcoin. So those are kind of two opposing pulls and pushes on Bitcoin's demand. What do you think wins there, Funky?
I mean, it's entirely possible, but I just feel like knowing how the market tends to, if it looks at Michael Saylor and it's buying as a leading indicator and it just doesn't ever stop, I don't see these flows slowing down anytime soon. You got to remember, like, the entire market cap for crypto is basically like the size of NVIDIA, right? I mean, like, we're nowhere near where this can go. So I think when you think about the trillions of dollars that the BlackRocks and the Van X and everybody else that has to deploy, I think it just continues to buy and buy and buy. Again, that could totally happen. We could see it. And, as these bigger banks get involved, they're going to want to have their trading desks using these kinds of things. And, I mean, I'm sure if you've ever heard about dark pools and everything else that happens in TradFi markets, I could see them crashing a little bit to get lower entries, then try to take it off again. I mean, anything's up for grabs, but I think the general direction is up only for 2024.
Ooh. Bullish vibes from Funky. I have to kind of lean into that as well. My instinct is to think the same, purely because of the volume of capital that's been on the sidelines waiting for an appropriate way to enter the Bitcoin market, and the scale of capital that is now able to easily access it, for me, is what pushes me in the same direction. But I know Legendary's got a take on this as well.
Yeah, I think we spoke about the stock market and your S&P 500 doing average of 7% a year. You can take out 4% a year, and basically you never reduce your capital stock. You are hedging against inflation, and you don't have the need to ever sell that capital stock. And if you think about this premise, and you see, and this would be my bull case if I wanted to make one. If you translate that to crypto, once we have L2s with native yield, akin to staking, restaking on ETH, and you just don't have that need to sell BTC any longer, and you can chip in 1k BTC, 100 BTC, or whatever the amount is, and comfortably live off a yield that you get on that, then this infrastructure alone, obviously not relevant for people buying the ETF, but more relevant for the blockchain native whales, if you want to call them like that, who still could dump at every time, right? If they then have a yield option on a deep DeFi infrastructure that is being built on BTC, that would significantly contribute to stripping away sell pressure. Just look at the amount of money that's being locked up in stuff like EigenLayer.
Very, very good points. Jack, your hand is raised. We've got a minute left on this topic. Want to get into Blast and Portal Coin straight after. What's your final take, my friend? Welcome to the stage. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the way ordinals have ran in the past couple of days just point to the fact that the market is waking up to this. I don't think it's completely nascent. I don't think there's nobody making these bets. So I do think there's an element of priced in, but it's just crazy how far this could go. I think you've got the runes, you've got this potential of OpCat, which Quantum Cats is all about, but basically the fundamentals are it makes L2s a lot more efficient and a lot more possible in relation to what we already see on other chains when these things get implemented, but they're still not a guarantee. I think with what we're going to see in the ordinals market when we talk about the fact that, we don't know where to allocate our funds at the moment. There's just all these opportunities. That's where my eye is currently drawn, but I am concerned about the bull levels that we're seeing, to the point that I've mentioned multiple times on the show. Once you start seeing multiple derivatives, that normally marks the top. And we have a project launching on the 29th, which is I think it's Puppet Maxi Biz, which is a combination of ordinal Maxi Biz and Bitcoin puppets, and it is touted to absolutely do numbers. This might be one of the craziest derivative price action we see in a long time. And then you have the big boys coming in. So you've got ordinal Maxi Biz releasing their Orange Eyes collection, which is going to be their largest collection so far. It's actually going to be bigger than all three of their previous combined. And you also have this new project coming on called Ink, which also seems to be capturing a lot of attention. I just want to summarize this all to the fact that we haven't talked about Magic Eden Marketplace, but they do seem to be in a very good position to capture all of this market. And that's another place my eyes are looking, is like actually just farming on ME with ordinals, with ETH coming on, launching, I think, today, and with everything else that's gone on Sol. I think very interesting in terms of, investment opportunities and where the hell to allocate your money at the moment.
Yeah, interesting points. I mean, definitely interested in the OMB stuff. I didn't realize that their new collection was going to be a bigger one, so potentially expanding the holder base. So I'd be interested in more details in that, maybe offline. The second thing, maybe my reaction to the Magic Eden stuff is, I'm not sure that you can try to include this many people without diluting everyone, right? So they seem to have wanted to reward OG Bitcoin people. They wanted to reward OG Solana users. Now they're going to reward OG ETH users. Like, this is just an increasing number of people that they're trying to reward with diamonds. Maybe it works out, but I guess the number of people eligible, well, I'd need to check the number of people eligible to kind of double check that. But when Tensor drops theirs, it's going to be for Tensor users, and that's why it's touted to be so big. And when Blur dropped theirs, I'm pretty sure it was for Blur users, or did they drop to OpenSea users? I can't remember, but it was just like one specific group that they target. So that's one of my thoughts about the Magic Eden one, where it seems to be going towards a lot of different people at the same time. Right, we said we want to get onto Blast and Portal Coin because they're very, very important. So Toot, I appreciate your hands raised on this topic. Maybe you can come in on one of the next topics because we have to keep it moving at the moment. Let's go to Blast. Then Legendary. We've got Blast reaching 2 billion in TVL in the past 24 hours. And I appreciate NFT Stats kind of shared that part of the reason why they've got to TVL is because ETH is ripping and a lot of people have thrown ETH in. So it's not necessarily the case that there are that many more people coming in. It's just that the value of what's in there is going up a lot in dollar value. So definitely bear that in mind. Only 157,000 users. I don't know why that doesn't sound as high to me as I thought it might have been, but that's how many users there are. Legendary, any thoughts on this? And specifically, two questions. One, what's the situation with Blast at the moment? Do you just want to set that up for people? And what are you thinking about in terms of Blast in the next few days? Because it launches in a couple of days, and the people I've been speaking to have been saying it's going to be a little bit crazy. How are you going to make sense of everything going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to your first point, you said only 150K users. I am convinced that user numbers don't matter. I think what's way more important than user numbers is the purchase power of those users. And if you see the $2 billion TVL and you just averaged it out, obviously the average is skewed because you have whales depositing insane amounts, but you still arrive like at 13K per user. And that is a very significant number. Compare that to a gaming blockchain with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of users who might have like a purchase power of a couple $100 a year or whatever. So I think that economic activity, of course it's airdrop farming, but just that economic activity that's ramping up to be on Blast is very interesting. You obviously have the mainnet launching in 2 days from now on the Thursday. We also had the Blast competition with the winners being announced. We talked about that at the end of last week. Obviously, a lot of the attention is going to be sustained in airdrop farming because the meta currently looks like all of the very hyped projects or the winning projects will distribute a lot of their own Blast token allocation, if not all of their Blast token allocation to users of the protocol. Just as a reminder on that 50% of the tokens are reserved to devs who are building on Blast, and that obviously keeps interest in wanting to have that money still on Blast and participating in mainnet. So yes, there might be a significant liquidity unlock coming, but that's not money that will basically run away from Blast, but that will want to participate in activity on Blast.
Good points. I put a tweet out about that yesterday as well. Like, if you think, I've seen some people's tweets like, oh, all of this money is going to get unlocked. Where's it going to go? Like, which NFTs is it going to buy? So it's not going to buy anyone's NFTs. It's not going anywhere. If you've got to this point in this market thinking that money is going to go somewhere off Blast, and Pac-Man's going to let you take your own money back, then you're wrong. It's just not going to happen. There'll be further incentives to keep playing in the Blast ecosystem. And that's where the money's going to go. It's going to go into the Blast ecosystem. Yes, it might get spent. Not saying it's just going to get locked up in protocols necessarily, although that will be some of it, but it's going to stay there. I'm almost certain of that, in my opinion. We've got Whale with us as well. Would love to hear his thoughts in a moment on the Blast opportunity, to see what he's been thinking about. One of the best writers and analyzers of the space. So I'd love to hear his thoughts in a moment, but just want to go to Sammy first, who I know has been producing a very important spreadsheet trying to track the opportunities. Sammy, I thought it might be helpful if, you've been tracking multiple opportunities on Blast over the last couple of weeks. Have you noticed any trends between projects or different types of projects that you think people should know about?
I would say, you've obviously got those 8 categories that the judges have made their decisions about. I've noticed that the rounds that were open last week before the Big Bang competition, those have closed up pretty quickly for those winners. So if you're looking to invest in some of these rounds, I think a lot of those opportunities have gone, particularly for those larger ones. I think for the runners up or the other ones, there's still potential because they're still looking for that capital, or they're still looking to build on Blast, a lot of them. There is a little bit more risk associated with that, though, because I think a lot of the ones that did win, I think they were backed by the likes of Wintermute, Binance, and a bunch of other fairly big protocols. So there is that. I do think that there will only be a couple within each category that dominate. I honestly, it's like finger in the air as to know which ones will. Some of them have live protocols, so you can try them out on Blast testnet at the moment. And I think as soon as they go live on mainnet, they'll probably be available to farm, and there'll probably be a lot of activity on those, especially the ones that first come out the gate. I'll be digging into those as well. But there are some interesting runner-up protocols that have live products on testnet that I think are still worth looking into. Just because they've won the Big Bang competition doesn't mean that they're not going to do well when mainnet goes live. Because there might be a case where one of these big protocols that won got through that competition, but doesn't launch until a later stage. All of a sudden, the user activity goes to maybe one of these other ones. So that's something that I'll probably be looking at as well, because if they have that first user advantage, maybe they'll incentivize and retain that user base. So
great points. I do agree with you that there will be more protocols that are good, apart from the ones that have won. And I think that's one of the points that the official team mentioned as well. Just a quick update, ladies and gentlemen. Bitcoin has now ripped past 57K. It's at 57.2. Shout out to Legendary in the private chat for telling me, but also Bolt in the YouTube comments saying that I think it might have touched 57.5, which is pretty exciting as we are live today. So that's pretty cool. We said we were going to go. We want to talk a little bit about allocations and Portal Coin and what on earth is going on there. But want to hear from Whale first. Welcome to the stage, my friend. It's been some time since you've been up with us. What are your thoughts on the craziness that could ensue on Blast and the 2 billion locked up over there?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think you definitely made a good point. Like looking at the track history kind of Pac-Man with Blur. I remember a lot of times, and I was guilty of this too. Whenever the season ended, we thought, okay, but now the Ponzi ends, and then he came up like with another iteration. So I'm pretty sure kind of the narrative of all this liquidity getting unlocked and people withdrawing and all this money flowing into NFTs or other assets. I'm pretty sure Pac-Man will find a lot of ways. And I mean, with kind of the points being locked anyway until I think April, right? I think there's definitely room to introduce a few new dynamics to make sure that people don't withdraw too much of the deposited crypto. So yeah, I'm not fully sold on the big unlock and all this money going into other protocols or other assets narrative yet. But yeah, we will see. Maybe Pac-Man changed and he will let us withdraw without additional incentives, but I doubt it.
Interesting. One follow-up question. Well, is there anything in particular that's taking your attention on Blast?
I don't know if that's attention, but I saw Seneca tweeting about something like a few minutes ago, and I thought he was hacked. But apparently that's like one of the first kind of meme coins on Blast. So I'll have to look into that. Not financial information,
sure.
But looking at Seneca's tweet, I first thought he was hacked, and then I looked into it. So that's what I will look into after the space.
Nice.
Just for context, sorry for jumping in real quick. The meme coin that Zeneca shared is Pump. That is exactly the one that this will get airdropped.
Got it. Yeah, we're aware of a few meme coins that are going to be coming, but it's an interesting point that you make, Well, because I think that's the type of feeling that a lot of people, that's the type of reaction I think a lot of people are going to have in the next few days, because there's going to be all of these tweets of people claiming like pre-tokens or claiming airdrops, and there's going to be all of these things on the timeline, and it's going to be difficult to know, like, is this stuff official? Is it not? So one thing I would caution people before we go into the next piece of news is, like, just be careful in the next few days, because there will be scams. There will be things. We've already seen one, right? And there will be a lot of people trying to move quickly to take advantage of all the capital and attention on Blast right now. So definitely keep that in mind over the next few days. And what I'll do now, we've got a final 5 minutes. I'll bring you up to speed with what else has been going on in the market from the Web3 roundup in the snapshot pinned up top. And then we're going to get into Portal Coin to figure out what's going on there, maybe discuss some of our personal allocations and thought process if we have time. But we know this is the bull market is a work in progress. We're going to be running out of time quite a lot, and we'll just continue the interesting conversations on the next day. So in terms of what else has been going on in the market from the snapshot up top, we have Blast reaching 2 billion in TVL. We've got that already. Yuga announcing a discount on royalties on the Magic Eden marketplace. I just refuse to make that a headline because I'm tired with royalties. I know it's important on some level, but there's just other things to be talking about as headlines at the moment. Miladies and Remilio floor prices were up 25% by relentless bidding from a 600 ETH wallet. That shout out to Cyrus for picking that up. MicroStrategy, we mentioned this a little bit earlier, has acquired an additional 3,000 Bitcoin for $155 million at an average price of 51K. So that bid isn't going away, it seems, either. Getting into some other news, FaZe Sway, with millions of followers across socials, partners with Portal Coin. So that's a pretty big win for the Portal Coin team to partner with a very prominent creator. Huge gaming creator Orangey joins Rug Radio. Thought that was pretty cool to see. And one of the largest ever generative art loans given against the Fidenza at 180 ETH took place on Arcade in the last 24 hours. That's just a few other bits of news to get you up to speed with what else is going on around the space. But Legendary, we want to get to Portal coin now, where people might be a little bit confused because what they are seeing when you go to coin market cap, and I'm just searching this for the people watching on video, but we'll explain it for the people who are just listening in. What they're seeing when you go to Portal coin is $6.
Wrong portal coin? Or is this is the IOU? Gotta go back.
Okay.
Like back on the search results and type portal. It's the one with the black logo. The last one.
Okay.
This one.
This one.
Yeah. I think they
got-
removed the chart now.
That doesn't
Anyhow.
have a coin. Go on, explain what happened. So basically this was
explain what
trading at
happened.
$5 to $6 for some reason.
Yeah,
earlier
I made
today.
I made a post on it to farm engagement a bit. I'm guilty of that. Was trading at $5. However, the data of that was only based on XT as a trading platform for perps, respectively IOUs that had less volume than Whales Market. On XT, we've seen volume of only 500K. Whales Market, it's sitting at 5 mil. Whales Market still sees it at $2.7 to $2.8. Also, to put that in perspective, XT was also the platform where Dimension was trading at $10 to $11, if I remember that correctly, way higher than it came out. If Portal Coin would come out at that $5 mark where XT saw it, and that's the data source that CoinMarketCap used, it would be a top 100 coin. And this is kind of the attention that the posts around that got.
Okay, so very helpful clarification for the people who would have been confused. I was one of the people who was confused as well. I did see the previous day, those XT prices, but I saw comments underneath explaining like this is one of the least reputable exchanges. A lot of wash trading happens on this particular exchange. You shouldn't take that price as a price that it's trading at. As you said, on Whales Market, it was trading just under $3, I think, maybe a touch above for a period of time as well. So it looks like Portal has been a pretty significant win for a lot of people. There is this post by Loopify, which said this. I'm just going to share it for people. It said, Portal Coin will obviously be a multi-billion-dollar FDV launch at this point. It seems once again that gaming is already catching on as a public trend. The market likes shiny new things and expect a dozen more of them this year. More opportunities always come. Sammy, and then maybe Legendary to close us out. What are you thinking in terms of this Portal Coin coming up at this FDV, or what it seems to be a multi-billion-dollar FDV, and then that additional idea that gaming as a public trend, there will be multiple like this moving forward?
I mean, the FDV is a lot higher than what I thought it would be, and I don't know if that is just representative of that attention on the timeline for what was it, months or a couple of weeks at least? Probably was months. I don't know if that is baked into the price. So will that hype die down post TGE? I mean,
I've got a point on that in a second.
I would bet it would, because they'd have to integrate it pretty quickly within the platform, give it syncs, have maybe I don't know, the faucets and stuff like lined up. But they do have, it looks like they have decent partners, so it could sustain. I think on the wider gaming ecosystem, I mean, I'm bullish on Pixels. I play that game. Bullish on Ronin. I think if you benchmark it against the RON market cap, I don't know where it comes out, but it would seem that it's probably, I'm not sure, I haven't got the numbers in front of me, but I personally think if you look at the RON token against its, I know we say we should measure it against all-time high, but realistically, if we're coming into a cycle that's supposed to be bigger, then you'd assume that it would hit its previous all-time high, especially now that it's got multiple games on there and it's got Aperon coming up, Cyberkongs are integrated, Pixels launched, and they've got decent DAU. And speaking to a lot of the Web3 gamers, they love Ronin because it's community focused and it supports creators, and they like that about it, and they're getting free marketing from it. So I think gaming's setting up to be pretty good, specifically with Ronin. I don't know too much about IMX. I know they've got good backing, but I think they've taken a slightly different approach. I do think Web3 gaming will dominate. It's just, I don't know where that capital is going to flow, because you've got several chains popping up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair point. It seems like all of these, it seems like there's enough capital to move all of them at the same time at the moment is what I'm seeing. Just a point on the syncs. I think that's a really important point, and I haven't seen much about this on the timeline. I think people knew about it. Obviously, I know because I read the documents, but I think it's fairly known that like Portal Coin, I believe, has staking as well, and I think if you layer that in to this, and it's something that I haven't seen anyone write about. I haven't seen anyone thinking about that. You know, when you drop 10% circulating supply or whatever number it's going to be, I don't know if we know those details at the moment. But if you layer staking in, that could get really crazy. Like, I guess people are thinking that it's coming out hot at the moment already, and that's already a big win. But if you're coming out with staking ready to go, which obviously, remember when Dimension came out the other day, Dimension came out and God knows, like people, including ourselves, were like, right, we're going to take 50% of this wallet and stake it, 20% of that wallet and stake. Like, we were staking a proportion at the same time, which is taking a huge amount of the supply out of the ecosystem straight away. So, I mean, people definitely need to check that. They definitely need to see confirmation on that. But I'm just throwing that out there as like, if it comes out with that at the same time, that could be something quite significant. Sammy, I think you came off mute. You wanted to come back on that.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that with Ronin. So there was a pixel allocation for Ronin stakers.
Sure.
So I think there could be a similar thing with Portal Coin, anything that's launched on there. I know they've got a number of games. So, and I know Seedify, so the Seedify fund, the S fund token, staking that as an incubator, you get effectively allocations for specific games depending on how much you've staked in each incubation section or whatever. So you could see that. And I think if they have decent games that people want to play, then it could do very well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I haven't seen much analysis on or idea of, because that could cause especially at the beginning when these tokens are not coming out with much circulating supply anyway. If they do have that ready to go, that could be very interesting. Legendary, what's your take on this? Give us a final concluding thought on Portal Coin, the bigger gaming thing, and maybe a take on the staking too.
Yeah, I think Sammy's take on that was fantastic, comparing it to the Pixels reward for Ronin stakers. You obviously have Imaginary Ones as one of the partners for Portal, who will come up with their own token with Bubble very soon. So you could go both ways, right? If there's one airdrop for stakers that is as prominent as Bubble or any of the other partners that they have or will have and announce shortly, then you will see a liquidity squeeze in Portal if they don't manage to sustain that attention post TGE. Then that could obviously dump very, very strongly. To me, what is interesting, very much agree on the gaming takes, nothing to add to that without repeating what already has been said. To me, what is interesting is that Mickey from Arcadia obviously did a fantastic job on marketing the TGE. Got to meet him in Paris, 19-year-old, absolutely killing it. And where I want to focus my attention is the other clients that he is working with. He also said he won't onboard other clients this year. There will be more projects, more rounds, TGs, whatever, probably to participate in. And if that is the case, that's probably where I want to have my attention, because it's an easy equation at the end of the day. Portal Coin made millionaires who were made by investing, having access to the round, and they will want to participate in further rounds if there are other opportunities to dip in that are done by that company. So that's one additional thing to maybe keep in mind.
I kind of love that take. So I'm not going to say anything else. Guys, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Legendary and Sammy, for co-hosting with me. Thank you to our speakers, Whale, Jack, Funky, Kusho, and everyone else who contributed today. Hope you enjoyed the show. We do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. GMT for 1 hour. We're live on X. We're live on YouTube. Give Modern Market a follow on Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. The bull market is here, ladies and gentlemen. We do not want to miss it. We will be here every single day to go through it with you. Have a wonderful day. Take care, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.